Hey guys, my name is Andrew. I have some gear here that I want to talk about, specifically the 76 Owldrive. It's made by a guy in Stillwater, Minnesota. I've been using it for about a year now, and it's become kind of one of my favorite drive pedals. And so I'll just quick talk about my signal chain. I have my Fender Jaguar here. It's got Lawler Jaguar pickups in it, which I really love. I've had them for a while in this thing, and the stock pickups were fine, but I really enjoy these pickups. They have a very nice, full, kind of vintage sound. They take drives really well. And then we just run through this pedal board here. I start off with the volume pedal and then run through these three drives. Then hit an ambient section. I got a delay, reverb. Today I'll just probably mostly focus on the Flint in the plate mode, and kind of play around with the Owldrive. I really like it as a first stage overdrive, which adds just a tiny bit of grit. I've tried a lot of Klons, and I like certain aspects of what they do, but they tend to be a little bit glassier than I want, without enough mid-range, because I'm kind of traditionally a guy who uses a tube screamer or some variation. My favorite being the Robert Keeley Red Dirt. I used that for many years, specifically the mini version, which has some internal dip switches that I really like to tweak that pedal. But I like having something that adds a lot of mid-range and just some richness to the tone. And then I like something that stacks really well with other drives. So this is kind of taking the place of that Red Dirt. And so I like to kind of set it up this way, kind of volume around like 11 o'clock, tone around 1 o'clock, and then gain around 11 o'clock. Just kind of adds just like just some nice color. I'll play a little here. Forgot to mention I'm playing through a Fender Princeton, a 68 silver face reissue. Here it is without it on. It's a good starting tone, but it kind of wouldn't do a lot in a band mix for me. But I like to start with something clean that just kind of sits well. But the Owldrive's nice because it drives the amp a little bit harder. It's dynamic, it's rich. Adds a lot of good color. And it's not really breaking up either. You can certainly get gain out of it, which is fun. That sounds great, but as a first stage, I don't generally want a lot of gain because I want to be able to stack gain on later. So just to kind of demonstrate that, I have the version 4 Morning Glory here by JHS, which I really enjoy. The Owldrive tends to be kind of an always-on pedal, but not always, but a lot of the time. So it stacks really well. So I tend to find drives that can all play well together, whether they're all on or none of them are on or two of them are on. Generally, I'll always have at least one drive on, but more often than not in a band setting, I'm going to have two drives on a lot of the time, and then I can still stack gain on top of that. So here's the Owldrive with the Morning Glory. The Morning Glory is running. I'll just do the Morning Glory to demonstrate. It's more natural sounding, many would say, more transparent. It's kind of a flatter EQ. It does add some harmonic richness, but it's not going to necessarily stick out in a mix the way I have it set up. But when you stack the two, then you're getting that mid-range in, and then you're getting more harmonic richness, which saturates more. So. See, so now I'm getting some breakup, which I really like. So that's really nice because you can dig in and get some gain, but you can still play soft and get some pretty clean sounds, but you've got that nice harmonic richness. See, it's nice that I can really clean it up, and I like having a volume pedal at the front of my chain. I do tend to use that really dynamically throughout a set. I do kind of cock it in certain positions to kind of clean up. So that's the nice thing about starting to stack drives, is you can kind of back off the gain with a volume pedal up at the front. So that lends itself well to working with these pedals. The nice thing too that I really like about the Owldrive is it does add some gain, and the gain that it adds doesn't do that kind of like weird honky thing that a tube screamer can kind of do. I can always hear when you stack a couple notes together that a tube screamer kind of gets this weird distortion that I don't love. I think tube screamers sound great with chords and great with single notes, but when you're adding a couple notes together and maybe finger picking, it's not always my favorite sound that's happening. But this works really well for all three of those situations that I just mentioned. So it works really well with that. I love the Morning Glory as well. Some sort of transparent overdrive tends to be really compatible with something that's more like mid-heavy, the way this Owldrive is. And I will say that that's the big difference that I've noticed, because I have tried a lot of clones. I've tried the I'll stay away from naming any. I've just tried a lot of them. I've tried many of the options out there. Many that are even exact replicas of like an original clone, and they're great. I really do like them a lot. They do really nice things, and I'm not a big fan of like having the gain all the way turned off on a pedal, because I like to play dirty. But this has some great grit that you can add in, and it really does add some nice mid-range without feeling like you're lobbing off the low end. Stacks well with the Super Bolt. The Super Bolt's really one of my favorite pedals. It's such a dynamic pedal. It can be really clean, or it can be really distorted and fuzzy, and it just complements the Owldrive here so much. Surprisingly, the Super Bolt by itself can be pretty tame, I would say. harmonic richness, not a lot of breakup by itself. But it does do a really nice tone shaping thing, which kind of makes it, especially with a Fender amp. I heard somebody say this and I really agreed with it. It really like pulls a Fender amp together, like a smaller amp, especially an amp that doesn't have like a mid control or doesn't, or kind of scoops. So obviously kind of Fender will come to mind, which I love Fender amps and I love my Princeton, but it really shines when you've added some dirt to it, and the Super Bolt really does a nice job to kind of like tighten that up. The low end isn't so fluffy, you kind of get a more distinct characteristic, and the Super Bolt stacks well with the Morning Glory too. And that's something that I really like to hear. Those two together are something that I stack often, and I really like they have the toggle so you can add gain, which is really fun. Yeah, the Owldrive just takes them really well. A lot of times my lead sound will be these three stacked together. And I love that. Those three together work really well. You could even toggle that up and get even more gain. Even just these two together. So I just love how the Owldrive really works with those other pedals really well. They just cooperate so well, and the Owldrive just really like tightens the sound, and you get a nice mid-range. Typically in bands, it's kind of just so easy to have that always on, and you can always go back to just a nice clean sound. And it just has like a really full sound to it, which is fantastic. Yeah, like I said, I've been using it for a while. It's staple drive on my board. The Super Bolt as well I've stuck with for quite a while. This one kind of switches out sometimes. I really like the Morning Glory. There's a few others that'll kind of take its place once in a while. It's always fun to try different stuff, but something like this Owldrive is always going to be kind of my first stage, because I really want something that kind of bumps up some mid-range. But it's great. It doesn't sound honky to me. I know a lot of people's complaints about tube screamers are that they're honky and that they cut off the low end, or you get a perceived loss of low end. And yeah, this doesn't seem to do that. So yeah, I've tried it against other Klon type pedals, and this one just keeps winning. Yeah, it's fantastic. I'm really happy with it on my board. So I hope you found this useful. Cheers.